Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another session of JNation Online 2020. This is our 11th session of the day, and team here is starting to get a little bit tired, but we're pushing through, and hopefully we'll get in one piece by the end of this. For this session, I'm very happy to have here with me Stephen Chin and last minute edition surprise, Johan. Hey, Steve and Johan, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Roberto. Thanks very much for having us out in Portugal again.
Not
This
exactly.
is a lot easier. This is a lot easier than driving a motorcycle to Portugal, but
Oh,
not nearly as much fun.
yeah, I mean, we you like a very quick story. You did the very first session of J Nation because you did the opening keynote on the first edition.
hmm
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that was
no,
great.
it's great to be back. And if you remember, the first time I came to Portugal was on one of my
Yeah, motorcycle
pan-European
tour.
tours,
Yeah, I
and I
remember.
was coming from Sevilla in the morning. I drove into Lisbon to speak. And then I drove back and spent the night in Madrid before getting to Devox, France the following day.
I
So
remember.
that was
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But not as crazy
Uh,
as you guys doing. How many sessions today are you going to do total?
I'm gonna do 14.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I mean, if it was like physical, it'll be crazy. But I mean, I'm sitting all day, so uh, it's fine. Anyway, let's just not waste any more time. I know that you guys have an awesome session about JavaFX, and I'm pretty happy that both of you are here. So without further delay, please, Steve and Johan, feel free to start.
Cool. Thanks, Roberto. So we're very glad to be speaking to this great audience at the J Nation event. And while it's not the same as being there in person, we all kind of are facing a new reality. Um, and I don't know how you guys felt about it when this whole pandemic hit and kind of everything closed up, but I somehow imagined that I would look a little bit more like this during the apocalypse, kind of toting my post-apocalyptic gear, having my trusty friends beside me. But I think it turns out that none of us actually ended up like this, unless of course you're doing the riots right now, which are sweeping the world. Maybe then you're toting. Well, hopefully you're not toting a gun. But this is actually what my situation looks more like, and probably for a lot of you guys as well. So lots of monitors, lots of screen time, lots of sitting. Although I do have my treadmill desk, which I try to do at least 2 to 3 hours a day, so I'm not sitting all day. And a completely overdone AV setup so I can do presentations like this. And I think we're kind of fortunate in the tech industry that we can be productive, that we have opportunities for employment, that we can get our work done from the relative comfort of home, and hopefully things will get back to normal and we can all be hanging out at J Nation and conferences like this in person and doing cool stuff together. But let's talk a little bit about the history of JavaFX and where it's come from, because Johan and I both have been following and helping out with JavaFX from the really early days, and we're really excited to see it making a comeback and becoming the standard for rich client development. So you remember the good old days of F3, Johan?
Yeah, that was when Java 1 was still in Moscone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of came back to Moscone, but then it wasn't Java 1 anymore, technically. So, okay. Anyway, let's not go there. So, if you remember back to these days, Christopher Oliver launched the form follows function, which was dubbed F3 for Cbian. It was acquired by Sun, and the initial release of JavaFX was actually based on a Java 2D toolkit called Piccolo. Piccolo 2D, which is actually an open source project. I was contributing to that at the time. And eventually they both rewrote the graphics stack and also rewrote a compiler technology to compile the JavaFX script language. And this is kind of when we both got involved in the scene. So Johan and I were both co-authors on the original JavaFX book with Jim Weaver. We did a lot of early projects and development with JavaFX, and we're involved with the team that built it. And 2011, they removed the JavaFX script language, which I think for a lot of us in the JavaFX community was traumatic, but it was probably for the best because it opened up the number of people who could use JavaFX as a technology. So now JavaFX was just pure Java APIs. You can use any JVM language to write JavaFX code, and it's very accessible. So anybody can do JavaFX code now, just as an API. And it was even bundled with the JDK in Java SE7 Update 6, and officially in Java 8. They did the full JDK integration. Unfortunately, Oracle made the decision in 2018 to remove JavaFX from the JDK. So this was a very sad day for all of us. What did you do on this very sad and traumatic day, Johan?
Well, I try to look at the opportunities that were starting from that day, because this really allowed the community to step in and to take advantage of the power of the Java ecosystem, and also the power of build systems like Maven and Gradle to fill the gap that was created.
Yeah, so like Johan said, you can't keep a good technology down. So like any great 80s movie hero, like this guy,
I'll be back.
JavaFX was a technology which wouldn't be simply removed and left behind. It was fully open sourced. There was large community support for it, and a certain company, Gluon, actually started releasing builds of JavaFX for JavaFX 11, 12, 13, and now 14, all of which you can download from their website. They support patches. They do full-time support of SceneBuilder. They also have a great GUI builder for building applications, and have support for JavaFX on mobile, which we're going to show. So in case somewhere you weren't following Java client technology, probably the most interesting thing which has happened in Java client technology recently is the ability to run applications cross-platform on different devices with exactly the same code base, which is pretty amazing, especially since you can take advantage of high performance ahead of time compilers, a common graphics toolkit, and then build with mobile integration and mobile features like accelerometers and other stuff, which is only available on mobile. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. This presentation, which we're showing you, is of course being recorded for the JNation folks, and we're going to also, well, actually the slides are already posted at this link. You can go to either the bit.ly link or the QR code, or follow the link from the show notes page on the JFrog website. Also, for folks who stop by the page, which will have the slides and the video posted as well, so we'll post a link to the JNation video when they release it. You also have an opportunity to get one of 2 Nintendo Switches. So if you like a lot of us have kids at home which you're trying to entertain during the pandemic, I can tell you that Animal Crossing on Nintendo Switch is probably the best quality coding time that you're going to get if you need to just keep your kids occupied for quite a while. It's online and it's great. They can just spend hours doing that and not disturbing you while you're trying to get work done. So I think the best way to get started with JavaFX technology is actually SceneBuilder. And let's do an ad hoc demo of SceneBuilder and show you guys some SceneBuilder greatness. So I'm gonna share my window. How do you guys seeing the new share? Other than the fact that the text is really tiny for now until I get it smaller.
It's just playing like being like crazy. Is that you?
What did you say, Roberto?
The stream. You might want to increase it a little bit if you can.
Yeah. I'll make it bigger once I get this dialogue. Okay. All right. There, now that should be more visible, right?
Yeah, way better. Wonderful.
Okay, so SceneBuilder is the best way to get started with JavaFX development. And the reason is you can use it to build real applications. So unlike other GUI builders, it generates and uses a standard markup language, FXML, which is supported by JavaFX. So you're never generating or directly editing code. And it has all of the different controls which you can use in the language easily organized. So on the left here, you can see this is all the containers which are available. We have a list of different controls which you can put into your project, and it's nice, easy drag and drop, so you can just drop things right in. Different mobile widgets you can use, which are part of the gluon libraries, and shapes, charts, 3D, kind of everything you can do. So it's a good way to see all the different components. When you actually drag something in here, it'll show up in this document view here, so you can see the layout and you can organize your components. And on the right here is an inspector where you can inspect and set properties for different things. So here's one of the sample projects from the book. Okay, you can see last time I was presenting for the New York Java SIG. Let's put JNation. And basically it's really easy to drop new components in, to play with the fonts, to play with the settings. That's a horrible color. We'll choose something a little nicer for you guys. You can add special effects like drop shadows and take advantage of different features of the language. So it gives you a quick way to experiment and learn the different capabilities of the JavaFX platform with an easy drag and drop GUI. And then also you have a preview where you can immediately run it and see exactly what it will look like. Hold on, oh, so you guys probably weren't seeing what I was showing. Okay, so it opened in a separate window. So let me back up quite a little bit. So this is a sample project. Here I added a text component for JNation, and on the right here you can see all the properties. So when you edit something here, it will edit dynamically. And you can also get a really quick preview of this. So if you go and you do preview, show preview in window, it will pop up a window with the results. And just a sec, let me find it in the massive list of windows I have open. Maybe it's already shared. Let me see. Oh yeah, it's already shared. Okay, and here you can see the child window it opened up, which is an actual JavaFX application that shows you the running results. And this is a live window. If you add a component like let's say I add a text field in this, which has actual edit capabilities. Let's make the font a little bit bigger so it's visible. And then same thing, run in the window. You can see it's an actual edit field you can type into. So all this is running live in a JavaFX application. So this makes it really easy to edit and do your first project. And I'd highly recommend this as an initial way for folks to get started with JavaFX, learn the capabilities, and explore the platform. Okay, so let's go over some use cases for how different folks are using JavaFX technology, and then we'll also show some mobile examples as one of the last use cases. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, Johan, in a bit. So one of these is the Mint Training and Resource Management, which is an example of a company which has a fairly complex JavaFX user interface. So this one is for flight control management. you can see the flight crews, you can see shift schedules, you can see like different airplanes and things which are going. Unfortunately, they're probably not as busy for airline training as they normally would be, given the current pandemic. But like this sort of complex view with Gantt charts, with tables, with trees would be fairly complex to build as a web UI, and probably also slow and not as responsive as you'd like. So this is a great example of an application which benefits from being on the client side and using a technology like JavaFX. There's also a bunch of mobile applications. So the DevOps conference, which also is a little challenged running events right now, but their mobile application, if you've ever been to one of their events or if you've used it on your phone, is actually entirely written in JavaFX. It was kind of branched off a project we did for Java 1 year to do a mobile version of the Java 1 scheduler, which Gluon and Johan did. They rebuilt it for DevOps to provide full conference capabilities, and it's a great example of a rich UI. And you would never know that you're running a JavaFX application unless somebody told you that this application was written in JavaFX, because from a end user standpoint, they download it from the App Store, they install it, it gives you responsive, near native like performance. So really, from the end user standpoint, it's just like another application on the platform. And final example is one which the folks at NASA were nice enough to let us use in our book and in this presentation, which is the Deep Space Trajectory Explorer. So Diane from NASA helped us get this image, and it shows their work to use a JavaFX user interface with complex 3D libraries in order to visualize trajectories in space and then do visualizations, which otherwise would be very hard to do without the sort of scientific libraries which they're using, which are written in Java. So this allows them to directly leverage the Java libraries which they use in a client form to visualize and show kind of an advanced user interface for purposes. And this is exciting, especially with stuff like the SpaceX launch this weekend and some of the stuff which is starting to happen again around our space exploration. And speaking of space, you have a space demo to show us, right, Johan?
Yeah, maybe. So this is a game that Gerrit Grunwald wrote, and it's probably hard to explain. So I rehearsed for this presentation today by playing the game and trying to get a high score. So let me see if I can bring this up.
That's a nice way to practice a presentation.
Yeah, my kids were jealous with me when I told them that I have to do that for work.
Hey, I'm playing. No, I'm not playing. I'm just practicing the presentation.
You set high expectations for your score here, Johan. I'm expecting to see the finest performance.
Yeah, well, it's live demos are always hard, so don't expect a high score. So what you have to do here is to make sure that those stones and so are not killing you. And so how much time do we have?
That was a good demonstration of what happens when the stone hits you. Thanks, Johan.
Yeah, so there's a shield that you can use, and that will prevent you from being hit. And so actually the animations that you're seeing here are, I think, well, pretty impressive. Unfortunately, my sound is not working, because otherwise it's even cooler. I think you get an extra life if you touch one of those circles. But the one of the interesting things about this is that, so this is now working on my desktop, but if I don't share that screen anymore, and can you hopefully see my this iPhone or low resolution?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so well, the problem is that I can't see it now, but let's try it. So this one has the SpaceFX game there as well, and I made sure that it isn't started. So I will click on the button to start it, and you see it starts immediately. And the reason why it starts immediately is because we're using the GraalVM AOT compiler. So it's this is JavaFX compiled to native code, and you see it's the same game here, where I can play and shoot and try to get a high score as well. See, at least I don't have 0 anymore, but it's a bit hard to play and demonstrate at the same moment. So I'm gonna die soon.
Yeah, don't worry, you've already died.
Yeah, so there we go. But in any case, this is the same code, 100% the same code as the desktop application. And if you go back to the slides, it's also the same code that works on embedded. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you see the unnamed window. Yeah, I have to fix that. That's on a Raspberry Pi. So that game is running on the Pi as well. So we want to make sure that everyone can play games everywhere. So if you would do this not in Java, it probably means that you need to create an application for desktop, for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, then one for iOS, then one for Android, and then one for the Raspberry Pi, for example. But if you do it in Java, like Gerrit Grunwald did, so I really have to give him all credits for this, because I mean, I have no graphical skills, and he has.
I've seen what your UIs look like, Johan. You can spare us.
Yeah, well, I'm not even allowed to choose colors, as most people know for very good reasons. But Gerrit made a fantastic demo, and that runs on all kinds of devices. So that is one thing that you can do with JavaFX. The reason that it works so fast also on mobile is not only because it's AOT compiled by the GraalVM compiler, but also because it is using hardware acceleration. JavaFX on desktop, on mobile, and on embedded is using the GPU, if there is a GPU available. So that's one of the major differences, I think, between JavaFX and the previous Java client user interfaces. JavaFX is really a modern platform that uses the modern capabilities of the devices with these GPUs. So, and that is leveraged on all devices. And that is, of course, platform dependent, but the JavaFX implementation shields the developer away from this. You just write Java code with Java APIs, and the hard work is done by the Java platform underneath it. So that works fine for games, but also for well, mobile business applications, for example, which is demonstrated on the next slide. So this is, for example, an application in Belgium where people can visit cultural events, and they get rewarded if they visit such an event. They have a card, an NFC card, and we leverage the NFC card reader capabilities of the iOS and Android devices, so that you can access this device-specific functionality in a Java way. So the API is to access this NFC card reader on iOS and Android typically are different, but because we have a Java API on top of it, it's still the same code everywhere. So that is how the advantages of the Java platform are being leveraged on mobile devices. Write runs run anywhere, and make it happen on all kinds of devices.
Cool. So not only can you make games, but you can actually do real cool stuff like business applications. And I think this is the is this the same project where you had those physical readers you were building in the Belgium office when I was out there one time?
Yeah, that's funny that you remember that, but yes, indeed. So there's also an application on a Raspberry Pi that's accessing the same backend. So, and that's also one of the what I think one of the biggest advantages of using JavaFX on mobile and on embedded. You can use the same code as the components that you use on the server, and that includes all the security APIs. Java was built with security as one of the cornerstones. And if you want a real secure application, you can really benefit from using those Java security APIs that are built in the JDK. So the PKI APIs, and so are part of the Java SE distribution. And those APIs are available on mobile and embedded as well. And today, security and privacy is increasingly important when you create mobile and embedded applications. And leveraging these components really gives you an advantage over well, some less secure languages.
Cool. And the other great reason to visit Leuven is some of the finest lunch sandwiches in Belgium.
Okay. Yeah,
and the people are great.
I thought you were talking about the beer, but okay.
Yeah, the beer is okay, but the lunch sandwiches, that's the highlight. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about one of the most recent features, which was introduced into the JavaFX stack, which is some of the 3D support. And we'll show some examples of how you can quickly build and create your own 3D applications using simple JavaFX code. So if you've ever tried to do 3D and complicated stuff with libraries like OpenGL or other low-level libraries, you know they could be fairly complicated. But one of the nice things they did with JavaFX is they created a very simple, pure Java API for creating meshes, geometries, and shapes. So the basic primitives are you have boxes and cylinders and spheres. So those are the predefined shapes. You can also use a triangle mesh or a mesh view to import more complicated shapes if you want to import them from an existing 3D model or something you've exported from a 3D program. Once you have some simple shapes, then to provide a little bit more depth to them, you can add texture maps. So you map a texture onto a shape using a UV map, which defines the projection. So here's an example of a 2D image of the world with a UV map that defines how it gets mapped onto a sphere. And this takes a Mercator projection and creates a perfect globe out of it. And besides putting textures on top of 3D models, you can also use light sources to illuminate the scene and provide light. So there's a default light source if you provide no active light. And then you can define your own light sources. So like everything else, I think this is all shown best in code. So let me find a suitable demo. Let's start with our favorite, the sphere cylinder box demo. Okay, so this is really simple code, which probably any of you could write. It's a simple JavaFX application. It creates a sphere with a radius of 50, a cylinder, again radius of 50 and a height of 80, and then a box. Where's the box? So yeah, box is 40, 50, 60. Adds these to the scene, sets some rotation on the scene, and then displays the scene. So very, very simple. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so here you can see the result of running it, and it's very straightforward, right? You just have the three objects in the scene, they rotate a little bit, the default light illuminates it. So very, very straightforward. But obviously we want to do something a little bit nicer with this. So let me pop up another example. Let's do the Earth sphere one. Pop, pop, pop. Okay, so here's another project which shows the example of the Earth sphere. This is the image, which is going to be UV mapped onto the globe. Here's the code, so it's pretty straightforward, right? It loads the image, creates a new Phong material, sets the diffuse map of the material on the Phong, then creates the sphere with a radius of 400, puts this in a group, translates it, and then adds it to the scene. And the only thing complicated we're doing here is a mouse handler, but this is also a great example of one of the features of JavaFX. So it's adjusting the angle here with the these two properties here, anchor angle X and anchor angle Y. And this is using a feature in JavaFX where you can set properties and then you can have those be observed. So we create a binding on the rotation of the sphere to this angle property. And whenever you update the property, it will automatically update the rotation of the sphere without having to set it. And then as you drag it, it's just going to simply update the angle and it should rotate automatically. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so here you can see the results of running it. The Earth sphere, it's projected the flat Mercator projection onto the globe nicely. If we click and drag, now it will rotate it nicely as well. And you know, very, very simple to using the primitives to create fairly complex scenes and shapes. And then let's also show a lighting example, because I think that kind of closes out the basics of what you need to do. Light demo. Yeah, let's do this one. Okay, so final 3D example. This is a simple light example with 3 properties, one for a red light, one for a blue light, and XYZ on each of those. So 6 properties. And what this will do is it will allow us to control the light with some sliders. So again, we're using binding to bind these properties to our red light property. And then we're going to add some sliders, which are also bound to the red light property. And then when we move the slider, it will change the position of the light automatically. And this is a good way to see how point lights affect what the scene looks like. Okay, so here's the application, and you can see the slider. So when you move the slider, you're moving the respective lights. So this is the red light. Now I'm gonna hopefully get it on just one face. Okay, now the red light's on the right face. The blue light is on the top face. Right, so you can see that with the point light, whatever side of the sphere it faces is going to be illuminated. If we overlap it now, where we get both of them on the same face, let me see if I can get this working. Okay, so now they're both on the same face, which the red and the blue make a nice purple hue. And this gives you an idea how you can kind of blend colors together. And I think if we get it up there. Now the entire sphere is purple because we've illuminating all 3 sides. So quick example of binding lights, what you can do with this. And while we're on the subject of 3D, another thing you can do is, besides using the built-in libraries, you can also use some other third-party libraries like FXYZ. Give me a second, let me pop this up. Okay, so this is a example of a third-party library, which allows you to do complicated shapes like spring meshes. I think this is a library which the folks at NASA use. You can specify things like the radius, the wire radius, the pitch, the length, and do more complicated 3D shapes than you can otherwise do with the core libraries, all from code. So here's an example of this. Come on, you can do it, IntelliJ. Where'd my window go? Oh, there it is. Okay, it was hidden behind something. Okay, and here's the output of that running the application. So it shows you the Spring Mesh, which is entirely defined in code. You could change the parameters and directly modify what's getting created. Okay, so here's some information about that final project FXYZ. And I think something important which we want to stress is some of the best practices if you're doing modern client development. We cover all these in detail in the book, but kind of the three main things which I think have changed in how you do client developments in the modern era are, first, how you package your platform. So traditionally, folks have been very concerned about the size of your application. But even in the case of mobile, the size of your typical mobile application has dramatically increased. So a lot of the applications on your phone are over a gigabyte now because storage is cheap. Folks want a rich experience, and generally, folks are less concerned about the size of the application since you're doing more with them. And I think the same trend is true of definitely desktop applications and other deployments. So one of the historical considerations was how you could shrink the size of your application, but the lightest weight Java application, a fat jar, is highly disrecommended. The problem with this is when folks get a jar file with just random class files, they're very unlikely to be able to effectively package and run it themselves. So you're much better shipping the JDK version dependencies with your application, which they require. With modularity in Java 9, this becomes much easier and smaller to do. JLink allows you to do this for fully modular apps, and with the release of Java 14, JPackage is now the recommended way of doing it. This was the JPackager, which was part of JavaFX. They added it back into the JDK, re-released it as JPackage, and this is the best way to package up your JavaFX or general client applications if you need to do desktop deployments. And there's a bunch of other great options. So Johan mentioned that the Gluon Mobile uses Graal to build native applications, and this decreases the startup time of your application because it does ahead of time compilation, and also reduces the size of your application. And also the folks at Karakun released a project called Open Web Start. And Open Web Start is a reboot of the WebStart project, which has been open sourced and is fully supported by the community. So I think a general trend is the community has done a great job at taking the assets which Sun and now Oracle have open sourced, supporting them, improving them, and making them great for individual or business use. And you can see more about this on the Karakun page about Open Web Start. Okay, and I think Johan was going to tell us a little bit about the process for creating static images using Gluon Substrate. So go ahead, Johan.
Yeah, so this is not only the recommended way for mobile, but it is the way that it also works on desktop and embedded devices. So before we had static images, it was always a requirement that the user of a Java application had the JDK installed or a JRE installed on his computer, and that had to be updated every now and then or very often. And many end users were upset because of this. So what we do with Gluon Substrate is removing the need to have to have a Java pre-installed on your system. So Gluon Substrate is a tool that it's an open source. You can find it at GitHub. That takes your Java application with JavaFX user interface as input, and it will examine the dependencies in the Maven pom.xml or the build.gradle, and then it will compile all code ahead of time using the GraalVM native image AOT compiler, and it will link the resulting Java So the Java bytecode is translated to native code, and that native code is then linked with the Java static libraries that come straight from OpenJDK. So this is the very latest Java API implementation. And it will also link in the JavaFX native libraries that are needed for the hardware acceleration. And if you do mobile development, it will also link in a bunch of mobile-specific libraries. And the result is a static image. It is an executable that runs on desktop, mobile, or embedded. So by doing this, as a Java developer, you can create native applications like any native application. So it's not the case anymore that you need to send a jar file or something that's bundled with a VM to the end user, because the VM is not even part of the executable. It is linked in together with the executable code. So only the pieces that are really needed are part of the end application. And this makes applications much faster to start, because you don't have to compile the Java bytecode to native code when it's at the platform. And also the memory is typically much smaller. So this is something that static images that's gaining popularity. Recently, Oracle announced Project Leiden, which is going to standardize how to create native images, more or less. And this is actually something that started in the mobile world, because you cannot send libraries to mobile devices. You really need to send total applications. But it is very useful on desktop and on embedded too. So the concept of app stores is gaining popularity. So with tools like Gluon Substrate and GraalVM native image in general, you can easily convert your Java application into a complete native executable that does not require the end user to download anything else anymore.
Yep. No, I think this is some of the greatest technology for Java developers, and especially for Java client developers, because it makes it so easy and lightweight to deploy your applications. Okay, so we talked a little bit about mobile earlier, but kind of the reason why you might want to target mobile first, is because actually the amount of traffic from mobile dominates the amount of desktop traffic. So often it's easier to start with a mobile application because it's a simpler UI. You can build it quickly. You can use exactly the same code base. And using the technologies Johan showed earlier, you can now run your application on OpenJDK 11, 12, 13, 14, right across different platforms. So have the same code base for iOS, Android, and for embedded devices. Take advantage of modern build systems like Gradle or run on Maven, and then have full IDE support as well. So they have great plugins for IntelliJ Eclipse and NetBeans to get started really quickly with building your first mobile application. So really easy to get started with. I think it's probably a best practice to look at this first and then begin with mobile applications. And you can take advantage of the ahead of time compilation and Graal substrate support that Johan talked about for optimizing your application for startup times. And the third best practice is building for the cloud. So I think traditionally folks who build client applications often have used local databases, or they've done things which were more database centric or more desktop centric. But really a best practice, and this is showcased by ETO Board, which is a agile tool used for team management across distributed teams with touchscreens, is you want to build a backend that is entirely cloud-based, is secure, allows you to communicate with different clients, and gives you the same sort of features as you would from a web application when you're interacting with it. And this was really the way for client technologies to be seamless, whether it's on the desktop, whether you're in the browser with a technology like Open Web Start, or whether you're on a mobile device. And as an example of this, one of the examples in the book is a weather application. And what this does, and Roberto mentioned that you should ask questions in the chat. We are looking at the chat. We'll answer questions as we go along, even though we're running short on time. But the first thing to post in the Slack chat is somebody has to post a city, and the first city will be the one we'll use for the example here. So this is a really simple application which allows you to do backend REST queries to a weather service entirely using Java code. So it talks to this. Oh, Roberto Mins. Coimbra. Okay, so that'll be our city of choice. Thank you. So this is going to a service, open weather map. We are going to put in Roberto's hometown, where he served some really great food at a local restaurant for us last time we were at the inaugural JNation event. It uses a standard REST API to go out and make the request. It displays in a JavaFX user interface. And I think this is a simple example that showcases how easy it is to build applications in JavaFX to use backend REST services and to get exceptions on your demos. Hold on, let me show you the exception. Okay, so this is unrecognized field gust. Okay, let me do some on-the-fly debugging for you guys, and you can see the JSON APIs as well. Okay, so in the winds class, we have an unrecognized field. Now, we probably should have done this in the book, but you can just ignore unrecognized properties in JSON. So we're going to modify it and say we don't care about that particular property, and then we'll rerun it. So occasionally the APIs change, but as Java developers, we can just hack the code, and then we can see that in Coimbra, it's 20 degrees Celsius, 78 degrees humidity, a little bit overcast. Does that sound about right there?
Yeah, so let me actually do something for you here. So let me remove that one. Let me remove my screen, and now you can actually see from my window.
Oh, nice.
Outside. So what do you think?
Yeah,
Is that
slightly
about right?
overcast. Yeah, it looks about right. I like the tricycle, although is that tricycle at the edge of a cliff?
No, it's my balcony.
Is there glass?
Yeah, that's
There's
glass.
glass there, hopefully.
Yeah, that's
okay.
glass there.
All
Yes,
right.
yes.
It's a little dangerous. Okay, so that's awesome. So yeah, so the application's working. It's giving us back some data. I'm gonna slip to the JavaFX expert slide here, Johan, and reshare just a sec.
Yeah, we need to start wrapping up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're there. Okay, so I just want to thank. I shared the wrong thing. I just want to thank all of the experts in the JavaFX community who made this possible. So Johan, who made a last-minute cameo appearance and is the world expert in JavaFX, he's actually the one committing most of the patches and doing a lot of the work behind the scenes. Jose helped with the slides for this talk. Gail, Paul, Jim, Eugene, Sven, the names
Tony.
go on. Like we what? Tony. Yeah. Tony, William, Bruno, Weichi, and
Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan are all members of the community which contributed to this book which we wrote and have been helping with the JavaFX community for years. You can contribute back by joining the JFX project on GitHub. Some of the project leads are Kevin and Johan. It's all 100% open source. And you get started at openjfx.io and find a bunch of the mobile examples at this URL. All the slides are available at this link. So just go to this link and you can check out the slides. As we mentioned, you'll get one of 2 Nintendo Switch Lites if you also sign up for the raffle on that site. And thank you very much for attending the talk. Do we want to take any questions? Did we get any questions in chat, Roberto?
Yeah, I asked for questions, but I actually didn't got any. But we got out of time anyway, so sorry about
Okay,
that. We need to wrap up.
let me leave you guys with a personal offer for those who join join the stream. So for all the JNotion folks who joined, this is the Swamp Up conference for JFrog, and normally there's a $20 ticket for registration fees. We have a little friends and family discount, and the way it works is using that we're still going to donate to the charity, but you get the ticket for free. So if you're interested, just hit me up on Twitter, Steve on Java on Twitter with a direct message, and I'll be happy to give you a discount code for the conference, and you can come join some more great technical sessions and also contribute to a charity. We will contribute to a charity on your behalf. So thanks very much for having us, Roberto. This has been great, and also it's been fun co-presenting Johan. We should do this more often.
Yeah, it was nice getting invited to play games online.
Yeah. Hey, Steve and Johan, was really great to have you both here. Unfortunately, that we could not make it here in Portugal. Hopefully, let's see if the situation improves and we can do it something next year. And hopefully, we can at least.
I'm really glad that you guys were able to convert this to a virtual event on short notice. So that was, I know, a lot of hard work on your part, and just shows the passion of the local community. The guys in the green room were awesome. I remember them from when we were out there. And,
wonderful!
You have a great team, so keep things going there.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's really, really nice to hear those nice words. And I mean, I think it was the last we could do for everyone sitting at home. At least they have something to see, right?
Yep.
Wonderful. So I'm not gonna take you more time. So thank you again for joining, and hopefully you can see each other in person in some other place when things get better.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.